think I'm good.
Okay. Charlene, do you want to come up and we'll do the yours first?
You want to do the minutes first?
Oh, yeah, the minutes. Sorry.
Make a motion to adopt the minutes from October 18th and December 6th. Let's see.
Second?
I've got a motion by Commissioner Perry, second by Commissioner Bingham. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Fell off again.
It fell off again?
We're gonna have to have.
We order us a
guys
new
get
one?
A new,
Bring some glue.
a little
Have
glue.
that fixed, guys.
We'll get their IT department to get us a new, yeah, that's got broken,
go.
so we'll get them to
That's
order a
good.
new
Well,
styrofoam
it
on
goes
there.
on
Just-
so
It just
far.
disintegrated.
Yeah, it just
right
kind of
there.
is falling apart.
Wow.
So I had the budget in the agenda, if she can get it up.
Yep.
The RDA budget basically stayed the same as last year.
Let's see, I'm
So-
gonna try it. RDA, I'm trying. Slideshow, hey, what do you know?
Here we go.
There you go.
Okay. Is it,
So if you go to the next slide, it'll
oh,
show
look at that.
Magic.
the detail.
That is awesome.
So that first area, the 80, Fund 80 is the administration budget for RDA. Pay a lot of our consultants and things out of that budget. If you go to the next page, the 82 is our P&G where we pay the incentive out and the debt for the bonding with Brigham City that created the water line out there. And so that budget, if you look at the prior year, it's exactly the same. That's what we opted to do when we met on budgets. And then the last is the Plymouth EDA. So we just need to adopt that as members of the RDA board.
Okay. I'd entertain a motion.
I make a motion to adopt the RDA budget as presented by our auditor.
Second?
I've got a motion by Commissioner Perry, second by Commissioner Bingham. All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks.
Sean, I think you're up for the appointments. Just explain a little bit more about it, like you've done the last 3 times, please.
Sean Milne, Bear River Association of Governments, or BRAG, your Economic Development and Intergovernmental Affairs Director. So I'm here before you today. First of all, I just want to say thanks to Tammy and Marla for making sure I was on the agenda. And second of all, I just want to say thanks to you guys. You guys have...
Actually, I did it, but you're okay to
Okay,
thank
well,
them.
thank you. I appreciate that too, Commissioner. But she reached out via email, so I wanted to acknowledge that. And a hearty thank you to the 3 of you. You got some patience and grace. All right, so I'm before you today, as I've mentioned before, whether RDA or general fund, because it's pass-through money and you guys retain some of it for special projects or economic development, is kind of a moot point. It didn't need to be an RDA, but appreciate just having the opportunity to come to you for some appointments to the CEO board, is what it's called for short, but it's the County Economic Opportunity Advisory Board. And just like Joan had mentioned for her tourism perspective, this is advisory only. You guys have ultimate authority as the local legislative body. According to the grant that you've seen me for the last couple of times in the last few months come before you, the annual process is that I owe a report on the previous year's money, and then I submit an application. As you partook in that process, you know what I'm referring to ask and request for funds as a rural county. And Box Elder is a county of the 3rd class, and so that makes you rural. You are guaranteed up to $200,000 through the Rural County Grant Program, or RCG. There are other programs that are available throughout the year, but as the RCG dictates, you must have and utilize a CEO board. The CEO board must be constituted of at least 5, but it doesn't have to be only 5. Another county that I could give you an example of has 9 that they've codified at the local level. You can have more, but you must have at least 5 members. Of those 5, 4 have a specific call out. 1 must represent the county, of which is the rural county. 1 person must represent a municipal interest. Doesn't just mean the one city that they're living in or that they might be an elected official of or a citizen of, but just a municipal kind of perspective that they give to this CEO board of a city within the county. a member at large, so a county citizen. It could be that they wear a dual hat, as is oftentimes the case for members in other counties, and then one who represents workforce development. They must have 4-year terms. They must be staggered. And so obviously, with an odd number, you should, 3 of one, and 2 years later, 2 of another. So I'm before you today because it's been a minute since it's been officially used and it needs to be reconstituted. So I'm here to ask you for your consideration on who those members may be. You may recall some previous conversations where, we need to replace some, but honestly, I think it would behoove Box Elder County to reconstitute the full board and stagger those terms accordingly as you see fit, taking however you would like to mix up those that begin today or whenever you might be willing to make such a decision, 2-year terms and 4-year terms, and then know that 2 years later, those replacements would then begin a 4-year term.
So have you got some names for us?
Well, I have some suggestions. If you have specific questions about, what other counties do, either within the Bragg area or throughout the state and the rural counties, I'm prepared for that. But I can tell you that Troy Lamb, working with Department of Workforce Services, or DWS, and Mark Alexander, representing Bridgerland. Well, he doesn't represent, he works for Bridgerland's Entrepreneur and Innovation Center. You may recall that part of the project money that we set aside a month or two ago, he has agreed to work with us to use some of your money of this coming fiscal year 24 towards a small innovation office space, some co-working space in Tremont and Garland area in an older building that's been vacant for a great number of years. Both of those gentlemen could represent you from the workforce development perspective. Obviously, DWS, that's what they do. Bridgerland Technical College, that's also what they do. So those are 2 that I've reached out to. And then the private sector is the 5th one. I'm sorry, I mentioned the 4 out of 5. Oftentimes, say a Chamber of Commerce individual, it could either be the president, CEO, executive director, whatever they may be named, but they obviously have a pretty good pulse on your private sector business community. So they're usually a pretty good, easy pick. And I've reached out casually to Monica and asked her if she'd be willing. And all those individuals I've named specifically thus far have said that they'd be willing. So.
And then didn't we talk to Mayor Holmgreen about, because he'd been
Lyle,
on it before, Lyle?
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be the municipal.
Yep, he could be.
And then,
Again, I didn't want to get ahead of my skis on this. You guys,
Right.
you know, have that authority. So.
and then one of us that wants to sit on the,
So, so this board is not functioning right now? Is that why we're changing all?
well, it hasn't been,
Just, yeah, go ahead, Commissioner.
no, it just hasn't been, they were actually gonna try to change it to where they just send the money to Bragg, and they decided that they weren't gonna redo that this last year, and then we wouldn't have to have another board to be able to do this, but they were pretty insistent that we're gonna have to continue to do one of these boards to get that money, so that's where we're at with that stuff. So we just need to constitute a board to be able to finish checking the boxes for the state, so.
And I will say to your to your question, Commissioner Bingham, there are a number of counties throughout the state under this program that have been a little lax, and GOEO has made it really clear that they want to make sure this is a bit more stringent, and as usually goes with grant money of any kind, whether it's Department of Human Services, GOEO, EDA, you name it. It's progressive usually that you're going to see a few more, strings attached, and so they're likely to just say, hey, what's your ROI? I had the same conversation, by the way, with another Bragg entity recently that I had to do the same conversation and request with, and said, they're going to ask for greater ROI. Pick how you want to measure how that influence of those dollars comes to affect your local economy, but they're going to ask for greater reporting mechanisms that I'll do on your behalf, as I have this last year, that says, X amount of FTEs or full-time equivalent jobs, or X amount of, have you seen a sales tax bump? Some of it may be a best guess or an estimate, but in addition to those kind of things, they're just asking that we revisit here in Box Elder as well as other places and make sure that we've got the terms staggered and that we're using them. So maybe to back up and just note, part of the function is that we not only have them, but again, we have to use them. And what that means is that I would work with them. I've been made a voting member in one, as an example, and then in the other, I'm pretty much like a secretary. So like whoever the chair is that they elect, they need to elect a chair and vice chair. That's also there, but that's not a decision for you. That's a decision among them when we first convene them. That I basically, take the chair's direction, make sure that I put out, the agenda to the public notice website, work with the clerk's office, however this county may want to do it versus others. But what I'm getting at is I could either be a voting member, an ex officio, take the direction of the chair and just make sure the minutes are uploaded, audio recordings are taken care of, all that kind of procedural stuff. And then throughout the year, meet with them as frequently as Joni mentions that she meets with hers. Make sure that I vet what the report will be for fiscal year 24 by late summer, early fall of 24 before I submit it to GOEO. Also asking for this same advisory board input before I come to you, and then say to you, hey, this is what the following people that you recall you've appointed to this board have recommended. And so the list, like you've seen me produce a couple of months ago, would go through such a board before it comes to you and say, this is what folks from within this jurisdiction, from their varied perspectives.
And they're also saying if we don't have this, we can't put in for the other 600,000.
Yeah, the rural communities
So if we don't have
opportunity
this
grant.
board operating and things, they won't let us put in for the additional money, so.
So a couple more questions. Who's on the board now?
Commissioner, I would defer to you.
Yeah, they're all not there anymore.
So when do we have to have this done by?
Yesterday.
Well, ideally by the end of the year, but there's some grace.
You expect me to make a decision on this
No.
in one day?
No, I'm
No,
just,
I would like to have some recommendations and a little
Okay.
bit of time to think about it.
Would you like to give me some further color?
Well, what cost, is there any cost to us to do this? I mean, are these would be volunteer board members
Yep.
putting this together to work on this in the best interest of the county, right?
Yes.
And provide us back.
we were
The
looking
idea
at
is
trying
just to
do
make
it.
sure you have a filter of varied perspectives before it comes
We
to
were
the
trying to
same-
make it through Bragg, so if, like, at the end of a meeting, we could just all sit there for 5 more minutes and do it through Bragg, and apparently that's not gonna happen either, so.
And you have bylaws in place that would tell them how long these terms are, that kind of thing?
There is
So they're not bylaws, they're state
state
statute.
statute.
That breaks that down.
Yeah, and I'm happy to forward that to you as well. If you would like that in the form of an email, you let me know. If you want me to,
This all
forward it.
came from a tax that they decided that they weren't gonna do anymore, and it was basically a, what do you wanna say, tax break for people or for businesses and things. So the powers of Eve, you were in the legislature at that time when they were talking about it, and they decided that instead of doing a tax break for personal businesses, they were gonna lump it into $200,000 per county to be able to get in the rural areas to get it back. And this is what that's constituted now, and it's probably been going 6 years.
three,
Three?
they talked about it a bit for a couple of years prior. So this actually will be the fourth year. So I stand corrected, fiscal 24 will be the fourth year, but it's 3 years complete.
So if you can think of anybody, I mean, these are the people he was just talking to, but if you think of anybody, then get a hold of Sean, and then we'll constitute it, and maybe the next,
So we have to have this done by January 1st?
well,
Ideally, but Commissioner, like I said, there's
he's
an
been
understanding
talking
and a lot
about
of grace. They'd rather us do it right than to have the old adage of haste makes waste. So at least one of the other Bragg entities is going to do the same thing at their next meeting. So you're not alone.
Yeah, I'd kind of like to have a little bit of discussion about it with some ideas.
And I would like, maybe you could email me that, but I think if you email me a list of who you're thinking on that, maybe we can reach out to some folks. I mean, I do agree that the Chamber of Commerce is one that we ought to have involved in here for sure. And then, who you think ought to be on there, the terms, and how long they should, and maybe why. Why are we picking these particular people for this group? That would help us out, I think.
I'm not known for being brief, Commissioner. Is it okay if that's a little long?
Sure, I need.
I love
something
how
to read
Commissioner
Christmas
Boyd
Eve.
is just
You
waddle.
can learn,
waddle
Sean,
through it.
you can
you
learn.
can waddle through it.
I need
Okay. Any other direction, Commissioners?
Sounds good to
I
me.
think we're okay with
appreciate
that.
Great. Thank you very much. Merry
Thanks, Sean.
Christmas.
I'd entertain a motion to adjourn the RDA.
So moved?
Second?
Motion by Commissioner Bingham, second by Commissioner Perry. All in favor?
Aye.
I also,
You want
Deanna, we're not done with the meetings.
to go back into municipal?
Yeah, we're gonna do the MBA,
Do we
municipal
do that?
building.
We need to do MBA.
We're gonna have to go into a closed session, but with the MBA. Yeah,
So I'll make a motion that we go.
I would just like to say Merry Christmas.
thank you.
Thank
It was
you.
on the bottom of my page. I didn't get that.
Yep.
Okay, so we're gonna make a motion to